Hey, it's Gage. I am going to show you some really cool stuff today on how I made over Christmas break my first tabletop role-playing game and sold it on itch.io. So get ready for that. So first off, let's talk about 2400. 2400 is an awesome collection of like mini games, more or less. They're all tabletop role-playing games, and each one of them is like a sheet. Uh, like I'll show you. So like this is a good example of one where you have a front cover and it's basically just 4 pages. All of them are 4 pages. And that is the beauty of why you should use this for creating your first role-playing game. I stress this. When you first create your own role-playing game, it is very tempting to create to try to copy D&D or some other huge big box book. And the thing is, and you can do that, and that's your prerogative, then do it. My distractible brain needed constraints, and the constraints of 4 pages, one of them being art, and the rest of them just being random tables and details. Having that constraint was just so perfect for me. Because when you are constrained to that, you make hard cuts on stuff. Like you want to talk about like your cool setting for like forever and like flesh it out and have maps and like do all that crazy stuff. And you can do that if you can get it to fit in the 4 pages, right? Um, but in reality, the constraints really help you finish it. And I'm a busy parent, so I need that. So the thing is, so he made these series of games, and then later on released a free 2400 SRD, which is basically just like the rules of the game. But he also provides the very files that he uses to make his own games for Affinity Publisher, which is a pretty cheap publishing um, software. And it's a one-time purchase too. So it's very nice compared to an Adobe suite. So, and there's also Google Slides and Google Docs versions of this as well, if you want just a completely free version of it. So yeah, anyways, more or less, what you do is you just download this, open it up in a Affinity Publisher, and then you get something that looks like this. It's basically just a document that you can edit. You can just, it gives you a lot of like advice on things you should do. Right here is where you put the premise of whatever it is you're making. Um, and yeah, so I'll use mine as an example. That's why not. So right here, I'll basically talk about my setting because like usually the way that this is made, and it is very, I think this is a good tabletop role playing design period, which is basically you bake the setting into every aspect of your game because it's really easy to like fall into the old tropes of like you have a laser gun, you're a wizard and wizards do spells and you have a fireball spell. Like it just gets really generic really fast if you don't have if you can write around that where you're constantly able to talk about your setting for pages and pages. But you can't do that when you got 4 pages. So what you do instead is you bake your setting into the details. So some good examples of that. I'm using my own as an example, which I'm not. He does a way better job at this than I do. But a good example is like if you go down in here, you're looking at your gear, right? Uh, like weapons are illegal except for peace officer, and guests of the city must check them at the gate. So in this particular setting, it literally like I'm using the gear list as an example of telling you something about the world, which is basically that like this is highly policed kind of situation where nobody's allowed to have weapons, and and like, and you get that also through these factions. Like these factions are literally 6 bullet points, and that basically describes all the factions in the city. And I also kind of like describe the different sections of the city, but I don't have any maps of any of these things. They're all completely to your imagination. And the nice thing about that, and I actually really like that about these games, is they do are really good about just providing you just enough detail to spark your imagination, but uh, not making you have to like what do you call it? Not basically like defining everything. Because the problem with defining everything is you have as soon as you define it, you have to remember it when you're at the table. Uh, and because it is defined, you feel the need to dig through whatever large book that you purchased to find the answer to the definitive whatever that thing is called and whatever that place is called and like whatever that particular deities does or spell does or all that other stuff. There's none of that in here. It's a bit, and that's not for everyone. Like some people definitely don't like that kind of thing, but I really liked it. And again, more or less, but the whether you like this or not, uh, don't make one if you don't like it. But I do think that the thing that is beautiful about making this is it's kind of like making a one-page adventure, except slightly more detailed than that, and a little bit more valuable than that. But it's still super minimalistic, so that when you're at the table, all you have to do is reference that one sheet, and you can run an entire game off of that. And I love that about it. So in making this, I was able to uh, I made this art, and that was kind of my inspiration for it. And then I put together this. I basically just made the back sheet at first, and then I posted that to the Discord servers. And you can find the Discord server links here. So I recommend these two, and I think this one is no longer available. But the New School Revolution and the 24 Discord server at the time of making this video are available. So join those, get some good feedback. I will give you feedback um, because I love to see more people make these kind of things. Um, the other thing that's really important to know is I made my own art, but you have an even potentially better option, definitely a better option, which is that people gave his permission for indie creators like ourselves to use his art for tabletop role playing games. If you're a large organization, he will take your money. But if you're just a little indie shop, little person like I am, then you're good. So, is there any more to cover besides that? So yeah, I think the only other thing that I'm going to cover is go over a little bit of marketing that I did for it, which is very light, but it's worked. Ended up being pretty well. A little surprising. So okay, so here are the stats of Curse of the Red Moon. So to date, I've made $30, which is not a lot, but it is more than I've ever made from. I don't know. I never expected, I guess, somebody to actually pay for something that I made over Christmas break, more or less. And you can see that it's interesting also to note where the traffic came from. And the weird thing is, despite the fact that I posted on both Discord and on Twitter and some various other spots, most of the traffic did not come from those sources. It actually came from itch itself, which is interesting. Um, and so you can see like the downloads obviously spiked up a lot right when it was launched. And then it spiked up again when I put it on the winter sale. I kind of made it part of the winter sale. Um, and the payments are kind of sporadic. They come every so often, but they definitely have kind of been dying off because, and I'll show you why, I think. So right now you can see that most of where stuff came from was the feed. And so when you go to my feed, that's more or less where it shows you all the new stuff. And the one thing I did do, and I think I would recommend, is basically build in the public and post it to make devlogs, like write devlogs like this. You can click this button to make a devlog for as you develop it. Because the beauty of that is every time you do that, you show up in, if you're going just in this browse section, you go then you'll have the feed, right? And that's just a pretty, I mean, it's a pretty prominent tab there. So if people are following you, and then they can see your game, and even if they aren't, they'll see it probably. So yeah, you got the feed. I got a lot of traffic from there. Also, you get a lot of when you first post it, you get a lot from newest and new and popular. I was, up in the top two of new and popular for a short bit because I think it's mostly based on newness more than anything than popularity. But who knows? I'm not sure how their algorithm works completely, and they will shut you down if you abuse it or try to work the algorithm. Um, but anyways, more or less, yeah, you can kind of see that it came from just mostly itch itself. Uh, Looks like I got a little bit from forum.rpg.net, which is interesting because I don't remember ever posting it there, but maybe somebody mentioned it there, so now I'm gonna have to look at that. Yeah, and then you can just see tags OSR. The other thing I would recommend also um, is when you edit your game, definitely make sure that you include good tags because tags will easily exclude and include your game. You don't want to include ones that don't aren't like true, but uh, yeah, make sure you include ones that are. Um, Classified as physical game, make it downloadable. The one thing I also recommend is you make it paid. The funny thing is actually I got about the same amount of money when I made it donate, so you can just make a donate too if you want. But most people in the 2400 people do it paid. The other thing that I think is important to do is instead of deleting the files when you upload new ones, you hide them when you make a new version. And the nice thing about that is you maintain the statistics of the old ones by doing that. So there you go, little tip. And then you just upload files whenever you have a new version of it. And I would recommend making spreads and pages. Pages are definitely more popular, but spreads are easier to print if you wanted to print them. Yeah. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's important here. Yeah, that's basically it, honestly. I really posted it, and it just so happened that a couple people liked it. And same thing could probably happen for you. So I highly recommend using the system. Um, so yeah, hopefully this video was at least useful to you if you're trying to make your first tabletop role-playing game. Uh, Enjoy.